On May 13, 2015, one of the country's most horrific murders took place in the city of Cochabamba, Bolivia. On this day, two members of the Adriazola family were brutally murdered. No doubt the entire country was in shock. But the more disturbing information in this case was who committed these crimes. Gloria Adriazola was born in 1992 in the city of Cochabamba, in northern Bolivia. She grew up with her parents, Omar Fernando Adriazola and Gloria Bustamante, as well as her sister Peggy, who was almost 10 years older than her, and her younger brother Omar, who was born just 3 years after her. People close to the family say that Gloria and Fernando raised their children according to their values and respect. The mother was a short but physically and emotionally strong woman who devoted herself to sowing and growing flowers on a plot of land she owned. And Fernando was a taekwondo instructor, an expert in the sport who had achieved black belt. He saw taekwondo not only as a method of self-defense, but also as a means of instilling discipline, responsibility, and maturity. This is why he was able to pass on his passion to his family, especially his children, Gloria and Omar. Peggy, who majored in pharmacy, was unable to play sports due to partial cerebral palsy that prevented her from moving the left side of her body. Gloria and Omar were very similar not only in appearance but also shared a passion for taekwondo. Gradually, they managed to pass exams and bouts, which allowed them to obtain a black belt like their father. They then also became instructors in the same club. Gloria became famous not only as an athlete, but also as a wonderful person. Her teammates and students appreciated her for being cheerful and finding the good in everything. To pay for Gloria's travel to the international tournaments in which she participated, the club sold refreshments, organized raffles, lunches, and whatever else was needed to help. In sports, the girl stood out for her great elasticity, control of movements, and skill, thanks to which she managed to qualify as the only Bolivian athlete selected to represent her country in the 2015 Pan American Games. The 23-year-old national champion was counting the days until this trip and dreamed of bringing home a gold medal for her country. But unfortunately, Gloria's dreams were cut short by the tragedy that shook her country. Omar, who was only 20 years old, was an instructor at the Pantes Club and martial arts gym. He also combined sports with his studies at medical school. He often posted photos and videos of his training sessions with Gloria on his social media accounts. Anyone who saw these photos could tell that brother and sister were almost inseparable and supportive of each other. However, deep down, Omar was jealous and envious of his sister because she had become a national champion. Although he worked much harder, she was the one who had the most success. He also felt that his parents favored her over him, as they constantly bought her clothes and praised her successes. Only his girlfriend, Alejandra Saavedra, knew about the resentment growing in him. She met Omar when she was 17, enrolled in the Taekwondo Academy, where he was a teacher. The girl fell madly in love with him, and they started a relationship. However, this did not meet with approval from the family of both young men. Omar was reportedly aggressive. He humiliated her and insulted her ego. This behavior caused Alejandra to become depressed, as a result of which she was admitted to a psychiatric hospital for a few days to relieve stress and get out of this state. However, after leaving the hospital, the couple got back together, despite the fact that their families were not in agreement. That's how we got to October 2014. That's when Omar, who was sick of his family trying to interfere in his life and constantly making him feel inferior in front of his sister Gloria, started devising a plan to get rid of everyone with the help of his lover. In front of relatives and acquaintances, the young people pretended to end the relationship. Omar even began dating a teenager named Ariana. However, he and Alejandra continued to communicate, talk on the phone, and secretly see each other. The reason that prompted Omar to get rid of the family was not only envy and jealousy of his sister, but also material, as he wanted to open a cafe with his girlfriend, but did not have enough capital. He thought that with his parents and sisters gone, he would be the sole heir to the house, wagon, old car, land, and money. He also wanted to get his sister Gloria, who by then had already established herself as a champion athlete. Although Peggy was not a danger because of her paralysis, he felt that taking care of her would be a burden to him, so he had to get rid of her too. Gradually, Omar convinced Alejandra to help him develop a plan so that they could start a new life together, without facing anyone who was against their relationship. And on May 13, 2015, the couple decided to put their plan into action. That afternoon, Omar and Alejandra bought 5 animal sedation drugs at the veterinary center and agreed to meet in the evening. The girl then went to her classes at the university, where she bought disposable surgical gloves that she would use to avoid leaving fingerprints. At 8:30 p.m., she arrived at Omar's house and they walked together to his room, where she hid behind a curtain. According to court records, the girl crushed the pills and gave them to the boyfriend, who slipped them into the hot chocolate his mother had made for the family. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, but the mother did not drink the drink, as she came tired from the field and fell asleep on the sofa. When she woke up, her husband told her that he felt very ill and then passed out. The woman panicked and asked her daughters to call Omar. Gloria went to look for him in the bedroom, but it was locked. Omar entered the room a few minutes later, and with the help of Gloria and their mother, they took Fernando to the hospital. Peggy stayed home, sitting in a chair and watching television. Apparently, while the doctors were treating Fernando, the sedative in the drink began to take effect on Gloria, who told her mother that she was very sleepy. Her mother suggested that she sleep in the car while they waited for the results of her father's tests, but she did not want to. So the woman asked her son to take her home. Once there, Gloria immediately went to her room, took off her jacket, and went out into the yard, possibly to go to the bathroom. At that moment, Omar attacked her from behind and tried to strangle her with his hand. The girl fell to the ground, but despite her drowsiness, managed to get up and tried to defend herself. Her brother hit her hard in the face, causing her to lose a tooth. Taking advantage of her defenselessness, Omar and Alejandra attacked her with a sharp object. In the midst of the attack, still retaining her strength and wanting to defend herself, Gloria grabbed the girl's hair, ripping out several strands. After being stabbed more than 20 times, the girl fell to the ground in agony, and Omar went to his parents' room and stole 200 bolivianos, which is about $30, which he gave to Alejandra to pretend the whole thing was a robbery. According to some versions, Peggy was killed by the couple following Gloria, while others claim that the murder of the older sister was committed by Alejandra with a sharp object she picked up in the kitchen before Omar returned from the hospital. The truth is that after the sisters were dead, Omar received a call from his mother asking him to bring his father's papers, because the doctors had decided to hospitalize Fernando due to a heart arrhythmia. The boy immediately changed his clothes and put the blood-stained clothes and shoes in the washing machine. He told Alejandra that he had to go to the hospital and advised her to leave quickly so as not to arouse suspicion. However, the girl stayed behind, trying to clean up the evidence. She put in her backpack the cell phone, computer, and knives used in the crime. Meanwhile, Omar's mother waited at the hospital for her son to arrive. Minutes passed, but he did not arrive, so she took a cab to her house to pick up the documents herself. As she pulled up, 56-year-old Gloria asked the cab driver to wait for her, as she only wanted to pick up the documents and return to the hospital immediately. As she entered the courtyard, she saw a skinny girl get up from the ground and run to her son's bedroom. Gloria thought it was Ariana, and at that moment she didn't give it much thought. When she entered the house, she saw her daughter lying in the backyard. Her face and clothes were covered in blood. She immediately began screaming and trying to bring her to her senses. When she saw that she was unresponsive, she ran to Omar's room to look for the girl she had seen a few minutes ago, but she didn't seem to be there anymore. Gloria walked on. Just then, the door slammed shut. At that moment, she saw that it was Alejandra, who immediately put the key in the bedroom door and leaned against it to keep the woman out. Gloria noticed that she had bloody gloves on her hands. Fearing for her life, she tried to reach for the key to get out of the bedroom, but Alejandra grabbed her hands. At this point, a fight broke out between the two, during which the woman begged to be let out to see her daughter. Then, thinking Peggy could hear her, Gloria began yelling at her older daughter to call the police, but Alejandra told her she couldn't hear her. The woman screamed even louder, but got no response. Fearing the worst, she gathered her strength and grabbed Alejandra by the hair until she fell to the floor. As they struggled, 200 bolivianos fell out of the girl's pants pockets, which Gloria said had been stolen from her closet. To get out of the room, the woman had to kick down the door. As she walked further into the house, she noticed that Peggy was also dead. Gloria then tied Alejandra with a rope, pulling her toward the door. She then yelled for help to neighbors, who immediately ran in and called the police. Omar returned to the house around 4 a.m. and found his accomplice under the protection of her mother and a group of residents. 2 female police officers then arrived at the family's home. Upon entering the home, the officers were confronted with 2 gruesome scenes. so they called homicide investigators for backup. First, they discovered 32-year-old Peggy in the living room. She had 5 stab wounds on her chest and 4 on her neck. A forensic medical examination later determined that the wounds were between 1 and 5 centimeters in diameter. The victim's trachea, thyroid gland, and neck vessels were completely severed. She also sustained injuries to her lungs, chest, and left rib, resulting in hemorrhaging and subsequent death. In the yard of the house, lying on her back, was Gloria's lifeless body. There were 20 stab wounds on her body, particularly on her neck. She also had bruises on her eyebrow, lower lip, left foot, and the front of her right rib. She was also missing a tooth, indicating that the young athlete had been beaten and probably stabbed by a second attacker. That was the police's version of events. Investigators then conducted a search of the crime scene. In the room, in the corner behind the door, they found a bloody glove and a backpack belonging to Alejandra. It contained 2 knives, both blood-stained, a black knife handle with no blade, 2 surgical caps, a laptop, a tablet, a cell phone, women's blue pants, a black jacket, a white robe, and a snakeskin purse containing another knife. All of the rooms were in disarray. The parents' closet was broken into, and several bills were scattered on the floor. Investigators believe the double murder was planned, as the killers wanted the attack to look like the result of a botched robbery. However, things did not work out as they had hoped, as the unexpected arrival of the victim's mother caused the men to make mistakes that later became evidence of their guilt. At the beginning, only Alejandra was arrested and charged with double murder, but her lawyers thought it was impossible that she could kill the national taekwondo champion alone, as Alejandra was only 155 centimeters tall and weighed 37 kilograms. But for some reason the girl refused to extradite Omar. She didn't want him to go to prison. According to the first version she gave to the officers, she called Omar that evening, who told her that his father was being taken to the hospital. She became concerned and went to the family home, where she found the door open. According to her, when she entered, she saw Gloria's bloody body, and just as she was trying to help the girl, her mother arrived and a fight broke out. While Alejandra tried to evade responsibility and cover for her boyfriend, he did everything he could to place the blame solely on her. In his first interview with police, Omar said that on the night of May 13th, he had arranged to go to his new girlfriend Ariana's house to watch a movie. But around 11 p.m., his sister Gloria told him that their father was not feeling well, and he joined her and his mother in taking him to the hospital. In the emergency room, his mother told them to go home and rest because Gloria wanted to sleep. He indicated that when they arrived at the house, his mother called him and asked him to bring his father's papers and a blanket, because they were going to leave Fernando for observation. Omar said he parked the car on the street because he had to go to the hospital again, and Gloria went to the house to get the papers. According to him, his sister spent about 6 minutes looking for it, but returned with only a blanket, reporting that she could not find her father's ID card. When Gloria went into the house to look again, he noticed the document was in the car, and without saying a word to her, left for the hospital. He said when he arrived at the medical facility, he didn't find his mother there. A nurse then told Omar that he had to go up to his father's room to help him go to the bathroom. The boy claimed that he was with Fernando until about 4 a.m., when he received a call from a neighbor informing him that his sisters had died, and his mother was heartbroken. After that, he immediately drove home. On May 15th, 20-year-old Alejandra appeared in court as the prime suspect in the double crime. At the hearing, the prosecutor presented several pieces of evidence implicating her in the crime, including hair on Gloria's right arm, a backpack belonging to her with 2 bloody knives, as well as a cell phone allegedly belonging to the victim's father, surgical gloves, and some personal items. After evaluating the evidence, the judge ordered her pretrial detention in jail. A few days after these events, on May 22nd, the case took an unexpected turn when Omar was arrested by the public prosecutor's office on suspicion of having planned and carried out the murder of his sisters, together with Alejandra. He was charged as the organizer and author of the double crime and sent to prison. Apparently, he was incriminated by several pieces of evidence, including the confession of Alejandra, who realized that her lover was seeking to incriminate her, and decided to tell her version of events. The defendant told authorities that Omar was jealous of his sister Gloria because, although they were both athletes, she was the one who always won prizes in competitions. Another aspect that Alejandra said bothered Omar was the alleged distribution of inheritance in the family. The land in the countryside had been told by his mother to him and his sisters that it would be divided into 4 equal parts between parents and children. But Omar wanted all the land for his projects. Alejandra added that Omar intended to stage a robbery of his house, and that she overheard his plans but did not alert the family, as she thought he was saying it to blow off steam and did not see it as a real possibility. According to her, she met with Omar on May 13th, and he allegedly told her he wanted to go on a trip with his dogs and needed to get sedatives for them. They went to the vet, and there they were recommended 3 sedatives, but Omar decided to buy 5. The couple said goodbye and arranged to meet at the university to study, and then spend the night together. Alejandra revealed that Omar refused to meet her, and she called him to find out why. He responded in a rude manner that his father was in the hospital. She said she was concerned about the man's health and went to the family's house at around 1 a.m. When she arrived, she said, she saw the front door half open, and when she entered, she found Gloria's body lying in the yard, covered in blood. Alejandra said she thought about helping her, but that's when she saw Omar. She asked him what happened, and he threatened to do the same to her mother and brothers if she said anything. After that, he left the house, and she started the family car to try to help Gloria. According to her, when she went to see if she was alive, her mother arrived, beat her, and dragged her into a room where she passed out. And when she woke up, she was wearing bloody gloves. The defendant claimed that knives and other items from the house had been planted in her backpack. The police chief noted that in addition to Alejandra's testimony, elements were found that prove Omar's direct involvement in the murder. Among this evidence are the clothes and shoes that the boy changed after leaving his parents in the hospital, which were found in the washing machine with traces of blood. Investigators also relied on surveillance video at a veterinary store that captured Omar and Alejandra buying sedative pills. Although the boyfriend denied having a relationship with his ex-girlfriend, they suspected that the couple had decided to sedate Fernando and Gloria because they were strong and could defeat them in any attack. It was also confirmed that the two were still in a romantic relationship, and it was suspected that the crime was committed because of money. In addition, Omar entered into a number of contradictions during the interrogations. Despite the evidence against him, he assured that he was not guilty, demanded justice for his sisters, and confirmed his version by pointing to Alejandra as the sole perpetrator of the double crime, as she was the only one seen at the scene of the crime. Alejandra and Omar continued to accuse each other, but the police stuck to the hypothesis that they both planned and executed the scheme together. While all of this evidence was mere speculation to the attorneys for both sides, the real evidence emerged when information was cross-checked against surveillance camera schedules, phone calls, text messages, and radio bases that showed the geographic location of the suspects' phones. The evidence also showed that the bloodstains found on Omar and Alejandra's clothing belonged to the victims. Another piece of evidence was a mark from a pair of sneakers found at the crime scene that matched the boyfriend's shoes that were in the washing machine, which disproved Omar's claim that he did not enter the house until 4 a.m., when he was already wearing different clothes. Over the following months, the prosecution continued to collect evidence, and after ascertaining that the necessary evidence of guilt against both defendants was present, decided to bring the case to trial, which began on February 22, 2016. In support of its charges, the prosecution presented more than 40 pieces of evidence against the suspects and the testimony of 48 people. Finally, after a 3-hour deliberation, on March 17th of the same year, Alejandra Saavedra and Omar Adriazola were found guilty of double murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison without parole. Upon hearing the verdict, Alejandra and her family wept bitterly, while Omar remained silent with his head down. He then hugged his aunt, who had accompanied him throughout the trial. This is such a scary story, friends. Sometimes envy makes people do very cruel things. What do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next videos. See you soon.